Well, welcome to the Global Sports Channel Australia versus India Daily Test Match Wrap-Up. My name's Phil Wishart and I'm glad you can join us. We'll be doing a daily highlights and update of what happened in the day's play so you can catch up every evening or check it out before you see the start of the day's play tomorrow. This is the third test in a 4-match series, and Australia took the first game in Adelaide in the day-night test, and in the second game in Melbourne, India took the honours. So we're 1-1, and this is a tough one. And there was a lot of conjecture around whether this game would go ahead, with COVID having a small outbreak in Sydney, and we weren't sure whether the game was going to be moved or go ahead or have crowds. But we are fortunate to have 25% of the total capacity each day and mandated to wear masks for the crowd. So it's about up to 10,000 people each day for those of you that don't know the Sydney Cricket Ground. Now for our overseas viewers, you might see a touch of pink around the SCG for this event. And that's because we have the pink test in Sydney every year. And that's for the McGrath Foundation, named after Glenn McGrath, who was one of Australia's fast bowlers. And it supports breast cancer nurses around Australia. And it's due to his first wife, Jane, passing away. So it's a great cause to get behind. And on day 3, we see the whole SCG lit up in pink. Everyone gets dressed up for the occasion, and this year they're doing virtual seats in lieu of people who can't be there. So a great cause, and it was great to see the test match go ahead. But without any further ado, let's have a look at the teams. So let's take a look at the Australian squad first, and we've had some big changes up the top of the order with 2 players into the opening slots. Dave Warner returns from a groin injury. He suffered in the limited overs series and has missed the first 2 tests. And on debut, we've got Will Bukowski, the Victorian, who has been performing really well in the Sheffield Shield, the domestic 4-day competition here in Australia. And he replaces Joe Burns, who hasn't had the best of form in the test series, despite a 50 in the first match, chasing a very small total. That also sees Matthew Wade move down the order, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Lavroshane and Steve Smith retain their spots at 3 and 4, and arguably Steve Smith hasn't been in the greatest form, so the public will be looking to see him score lots of runs here. He normally does very well in Sydney. Lavroshane's probably been one of the better batsmen in the Australian squad, so hopefully he will continue that form for Australia. And as we said, Matthew Wade's dropped down into 5th. He's been opening the batting in the absence of Warner and Bukowski, up there with Burns. Has done a pretty solid job for the Australian team, but probably feels a lot more comfortable down the order. So that will be a good move back down to there for him. Cameron Green retains his all-rounder spot after a fairly decent performance in the second test match on debut. And Tim Paine's behind the stumps and captain as always. The bowling lineup remains unchanged with Cummins, Stark, Lyon and Hazelwood. For India, we see a few changes in their squad as well. Rohit Sharma returns from injury to open the batting, and that will be a great boost for the Indian side. Gill and Pujara retain their spots. They've been playing quite well throughout the summer, and Rahane will continue as captain in the absence of Virat Kohli, who is back in India with their wife expecting a first child anytime now. We've got Vihari and Pant in the middle of the order, and Rishabh Pant, we'll talk about him a little bit on today's coverage because he had a few drop catches behind the stumps. And then we've got Jadeja and our bowlers Ashwin, Bumrah, Siraj, and another debutant in the match is Navdeep Saini, who will make his debut for the Indian team. Well, as far as Test cricket days go, it was a bit of a frustrating one at the start of the day with squalls of rain around Sydney, and they seemed to hit the SCG. We got a few overs in the morning and then had a big delay, and then got a fair bit of cricket on in the afternoon, which was good to see. But Australia won the toss with captain Tim Paine electing to bat, pretty standard at the SCG, that the team that wins a toss would normally bat first. And this meant that fans got to see Bukowski and Warner up front in the thick of it right away, which was great. As we said, there was a lot of conjecture around Dave Warner. How fit was he going into the test? How is his groin going to hold up? And I must say, he did look pretty uncomfortable at the crease, especially on a single early in his innings. But it wasn't long until the Indians had their man, with Siraj getting Warner to nick off to Pujara at first slip, and he was gone for 5 runs. And then all attention turned to the debutant, Bukowski. As I said, we only got 7.1 overs in, and then the rain came, and it was a frustrating morning. The rain was on, it was off, the covers were on, they were off, the umpires were in and out, they thought about taking the early lunch break, And in the end, we had a delay of about 4 hours, but we did get back on the pitch at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And the debutant Bukowski, once we got back on the park, looked in pretty good form, but definitely had some lives throughout day one. He got dropped twice by Pant. He nicked it on 26, and then he nicked again on 32, and Pant fumbled that one. Looked like he'd caught it, but on review had gone to grass. He then nearly got run out by a bit of a mix-up, and Bumrah fell over and threw the ball in. I guess you make your own luck in Test cricket, and he definitely had some along the way, and was fortunate enough to make his half century off 97 balls when Saini, the debutant, came on, hit him for 2 fours in his first 2 balls of Test cricket, and made a great 50. Bukowski and Lavroshane looked in pretty good form as a partnership too. They had the biggest partnership for the Australian team this summer. They ended up with a 100-run partnership before Bukowski was dismissed for 62 runs. And that was by the debutant, Saini. So the 2 debutants firing up against each other, and Saini getting the best of Bukowski there in his first game, his first Test wicket, and I'm sure he'll remember that one forever. This brought Steve Smith to the crease, and as we mentioned, he hadn't had the best of form in the first 2 matches in the Test series, but so far he'd been looking pretty good in that last session before the end of day's play today. Whilst the Indians looked pretty threatening from the bowling crease, Australia managed to make it through unscathed, losing no more wickets for the rest of the day. And we saw Lavroshane get in on the half-century action. He scored his 50 and went on to finish the day at 67 not out. So let's take a look at the summary of the scorecard for today. And Australia finished on 2 for 166 off 55 overs. Will Bukowski out on 62. We had Marnus Labuschagne and Steve Smith ended the day unbeaten on 67 and 31 not out respectively. It's been pretty tough going for the Australians. The scoring rate's been pretty slow, which is what we've seen in the first 2 tests as well. Australia haven't seemed to have that aggressive start that we're used to seeing them get on Australian soil. But for the bowlers in India, Saini on debut, as we said, got his first wicket. He had 1 for 32 off 7 overs. And Mohammad Siraj had 1 for 46 off 14. Other bowlers not getting any wickets throughout the day. So that is day 1 done and dusted at the Sydney Test, and on the balance I think Australia are slightly ahead. They've had a few good starts and haven't had many 50s in this series, and a few drop catches from the Indian probably places the Australians just ahead, but plenty of cricket to go, and looks like the weather's getting better in Sydney, so we should see a lot of action over the next 4 days. Don't forget you can follow all the action via the Global Sports channel. We'll have the daily highlights show, so make sure you join in every evening or catch it before the next day's play. And you can like, share and follow the Global Sports channel on social media platforms, wherever you are in the world. Until tomorrow, hope you enjoy your evening or your day and look forward to catching up then. Bye-bye.
Bounces per over. I know that you can't bowl 4 over the bat. Technique from Pat Cummins.